Starting it. Hello, everyone, to another DoneJS contributors meeting on, was it August the 3rd, I believe? With us today, we have from the DoneJS core team, we have Julian.
Hey, everyone.
And we have Justin.
What's up, party people?
And I'm Matthew, here as your DJ today. Usually Chasen is in this role, but he's doing other things, and Kevin is off as well. So it's just going to be a very small, intimate DoneJS contributors meeting today, but hopefully it will be a fun one. There's one topic I wanted to talk about. I forgot to put in the forums. I'm so sorry. Got distracted, but I will update that, or we'll talk about the topics in a little while. But first, let's talk about statuses, because that's what we do, right? Let's talk about open source statuses.
Demos.
And demos, of course, yeah. I got kind of a cool one, I think, hopefully. Julian, I know you've been dipping your toes in a whole bunch of different stuff. Is there anything, what's your status?
Yeah, I'm very busy. So no, it's okay. I have been some issue tracking about Steel and some bugs. I fixed some bugs with some features for Steel, but nothing really interesting. So yeah, that's the status. It's not very much.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, thanks. I know you did get the for Steel 2.0, which I can't remember. I guess Steel 2.0 came out since our last meeting. I should probably talk about that, maybe. Yeah, I guess I'll do that. But yeah, Julian got improved support for blobs in the bundle configuration. So appreciate that, Julian. You got docs in for that too. So
for those who don't know what that is, you want to describe what that's useful for?
Julian, I'll let you do that.
Okay. I wrote some docs, so maybe I can share my my screen and show you the docs and go through it. So do you see my screen right now?
Yes, we do. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, it's very easy for me to go to the docs. So yeah, I updated the docs a little bit. And before that feature came in, it was a feature, I think, 2 years ago. Somebody asked it on or create an issue about that he always had to put his bundle configs into the package JSON, and it get it huge because he had to explicitly define all his components that has to be bundled, and it was also possible to have a glob, but only a string for a glob. But sometimes you had bundles in different places, and so the main feature request is that you can now have a glob pattern in your bundle, and then Steel would bundle these files in separate files, and that you can load them dynamically. That's the point behind the bundle, that it will be loaded like if you have a Steel import like this one, and or you make an import in your stash file, like with can import. It's the same behavior. You load something in your file dynamically on the behavior that you have defined here, and now you can have globs in your array and in the array of bundles, and so Steel would find all this components and bundle them, each one in his own file.
I got a quick question. Does it match like all? Would it match like a CSS? Do you need to like do the .js if you just want it to find JS, or does it like if I have a stash, would it get stash too?
I wrote here the modlet. So the glob pattern is a glob pattern. So it finds all the files like markdown files. If you make a modlet, or if you follow the modlet workflow that that you or DoneJS introduced, then you have to modify your glob, because the glob pattern finds all files in the components directory. There are test files, there are HTML files, there are markdown files. So you have to modify your glob that only the JS files will be found by the glob, and sometimes you have to exclude files with the exclamation mark at the start of your glob. You can exclude files like the test.js file. So these files are not being found by the glob or by the regex. So they get excluded, and you only have the files that you needed for bundling. And that's
awesome. That's beautiful.
So you have to modify your glob, because otherwise you get all files, and then steel tools will break and say they can't handle a markdown file to be bundled.
With that, it's almost like, I almost feel like this should almost change DoneJS in terms of like how we tell people to organize their applications. Like, it's almost like we should just have a pages folder, and then you put like page components in there, and then there's another components folder for all of the ones that are imported. And then because then we can just write out this configuration, and people can just kind of follow that convention, and it's like there. You don't have to worry about listing your bundles anymore. You just put your components, one type of components one place, the other type of components another place. That's really cool.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, of course, you can have a pre-configured file that is in your DoneJS. If you create a DoneJS app with a generator, you can write these pre-config bundle globs in your package JSON, so you don't have to worry about if you add a new component, you have to worry about add it to the bundle array. So yeah, of course.
Just to note that with DoneJS, you don't have to do that anyways, because it like auto discovers it from index.
But only if you're doing it in the page. It doesn't auto discover components if you're like
oh, that's right. Yeah, the bitballs way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the go through the dogs of steel.
Cool. See, Julian, you very much downplayed your contribution this week, but it turns out to maybe changing DoneJS in a big way. So it's cool.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you. Justin, do you have anything you wanted to report?
Mine's not nearly as impressive as that. I've been working on upgrading the To-Do-MVC demo, the To-Do-MVC guide, which you can find under recipes. This is one of our bigger guides that goes through like every part of CanJS and links to our PowerPoint presentations, things like that. I've been working on updating this for 5.0, so it uses the new imports. As part of this, I wanted to, and it also, one other nice feature about this is once you've completed To-Do-MVC, it actually runs tests to verify that you've done every step correctly. So this is just really good to use in a training scenario. But as part of this, I really wanted to finally have view models directly on component elements. So here, I'm creating a To-Do-MVC component, and I can get that element, and then the view model is actually on it. You don't have to use the can view model package to get the view model anymore. It's just directly on the element, which is super convenient, very nice for debugging. So that very easy, like one-line change, but really convenient. So hopefully people like that.
Yes, that is cool. I was working on some project and I wanted to have me implement that myself. So that just came out in Can component. Like what was it?
420.
420. Okay.
420, I think, maybe.
Right. Well, yeah, get that. No, it's yeah, for any. I've been doing a lot of demos recently and just wanting to like modify my component and stuff, and having to add a connected callback and do that manually. So very nice to just have that now. Did you have
430, 430.
430, get can component 430. Okay, thank you, Justin. I'll go over mine next. So I have a couple of things. I've been working on some very fun stuff recently. But first off, StillJS 2.0 is out, and there is an article on batobi.com/blog about the release. I was actually pretty happy with kind of the social media buzz about this. I saw it spreading around pretty good. And tree shaking is the primary, the headlining feature of StillJS 2.0. I know you, Julian, you've already found a ton of bugs with that, and I've tried to fix those as quickly as possible. I appreciate it that you would be able to find those. But what makes our implementation of tree shaking unique is that we're able to do kind of two different passes at tree shaking, and one of them happens in the client in StillJS itself. So just give a brief explanation of what tree shaking is. You have a module like this, a math.js. It exports two functions. If you import that module, you only use the add. Then that means this is not used, and tree shaking will delete this code, so it's not included in your final bundle. So that's just kind of what tree shaking is in general. What we do that's kind of interesting, yeah, this kind of explains what the resulting bundle becomes with subtract not included. What we do is kind of interesting in CanJS 5.0 is that we have an ES module that you can import and pluck out all the different parts of can from, and we've talked about this in previous contributor meetings about CanJS 5. So what Still can do in the client that's kind of unique is it's able to see that only component is used, and it's able to take this can.js file, and it has all these exports, and it reduces it down to just this. So that means that we never even wind up loading can define or can stash or any of this other stuff, which is really nice. It's really good for, we started working on CanJS 5 and we wanted to support tree shaking, and we realized that for Still users it was going to be kind of difficult to have to load everything in the client in development, even though you're not using everything. So that's why we wound up adding this to Still 2.0. So that's the big headlining feature. Please check it out. Native promises, we default to native promises now in Still.js. I was just using this myself earlier today, and it's just so much easier to debug whenever you have to look at the stack trace in your debugger, to be able to very easily go back in the code without having to jump through all the stuff that the promise was doing, or all the stuff that the polyfill was doing. If you still need the polyfill, if you're supporting IE11, then you can use Still with promises.js, so that's possible. We support the .mjs extension now. And actually in Still 2.1, we support importing from, you can import from unpackaged. So the way that, I think we've shown in the past to use native modules to import can from unpackaged, you can do that, and Still will work with that as well. So that just came in Still 2.1. We kind of simplified demo pages so you don't have to do this add empty anymore. And we did that by not auto-loading the main. You have to actually provide a main. There's a convenient way to just provide a Boolean main attribute, and it will load the package.json main. And lastly, we implemented, or we turned on, we've had this for a while, but this is something that CanJS does now, is in order to work with other bundlers like Webpack, the code looks like this. And this is a way to remove this development code. Still has supported this method for a while, but now it does it by default. So yeah, it's a pretty small release. I don't think, if I'm remembering correctly, there are no there are no code changes to like your actual JavaScript code that you need to make the upgrade. You need to change like your HTML page, like your index.html to add the main. A couple other minor things. If you want to use the promises polyfill, you need to change that. But you don't need to actually change anything in your JavaScript. If you go to steeljs.com, there is a migrating to Steel 2.x guide. So it kind of goes over, it's pretty small. It goes over all the stuff I talked about, adding the main and all the other breaking changes. So check that out. If you have any problems, please file an issue and I'll try to.
Oh, I noticed the links are finally to the left now. That looks great.
That's been there for a while, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever congratulated you for it.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think I did it, but I'll take the congratulations anyways. Yeah, that's still 2.2.0. I think it's actually been a pretty, like I said, it's been a little bit. I've seen it spread out there, so I think people are somewhat excited about it. Hopefully, we can get more people on board and get people using Steel and the rest of DoneJS. So that's it for Steel 2. I'll just briefly talk about some of the stuff I'm working on now. So I've been working on, we have Steel 2.0 out. We have CanJS 5 out. DoneJS 3, people have already been asking what's going on with DoneJS 3. Now we do have a DoneJS 3 pre-release, and that pre-release has all the new versions of uses the main Can 5.0 package, and uses Steel 2.0, and there's like a new Done Auto Render pre-release, or excuse me, Done SSR pre-release and all that stuff. So that's out there. We're looking into making incremental rendering the default way to do server-side rendering. So I'm kind of working on cleaning all that up, because the way it works currently in the old Done SSR is it's a little bit tricky. So part of that is I'm creating this new Mutation Observer polyfill. Now the way that incremental rendering works, the way Done SSR works in general, is that it has a DOM, which we can simple DOM, that looks just like the real DOM. Well, not just like it, but pretty close. And we run our CanJS apps inside of that DOM, and then we just get the HTML and we render that. That's how we do normal server-side rendering. With incremental rendering, we do it a little bit different in that we render it inside of that DOM, but instead of waiting for everything to finish, like usually it uses zones to wait for all of your code to complete, instead of doing that, it serves up like a minimal page right away, and it listens to all the mutations that happen within the DOM and send those mutations to the client, and the client will apply those mutations, apply those patches. But this worked with an old library called DOM patch. This was originally written when we did web worker rendering in DoneJS, and I kind of decided to use it with incremental rendering. It has it works kind of, but it has some words that needed fixing. Just for one, it was only made to work with Can Simple DOM, but we want to support JS DOM as well, and it was kind of hacky to get that to work. Another problem is that it was really written as kind of a singleton, and you only need to worry about like one global document, whereas now in server-side rendering there are many documents. And again, these are things that I was able to like kind of in a hackish way I was able to fix, but it's not ideal. But lastly, the problem why I wanted to redo this is because it would be very cool if we could make this work in like a headless browser, like a Chrome headless. Now this library, this patching DOM patch will not work on Chrome headless. It tries to like overwrite some stuff that you can't do in a real browser. I don't remember the specifics of what the problems are. I just remember that you can't do it, essentially. But what you do have in native browsers is mutation observers. So, and this is really what we're doing, is we're listening to mutations. So it was kind of the right abstraction anyways. So I created a mutation observer polyfill. The only thing I want to say about this one, it's just a mutation observer. If you've ever used Mutation Observer, that's what it is. It will work with JS DOM and CanSimple DOM. It's tested against both of those. The only thing cool about this is how the tests work. Just want to show that off real quick.
Hey, Matthew, I'm just going to put this out there because I didn't know you were working on this. Is it possible to make your Mutation Observer synchronous in terms of how it calls back functions?
It's definitely possible. I don't know if I like that idea. Just
no. Well, because we have can-dom mutate, right?
Yeah, I do know you have can. Yes, I know this.
So can-dom mutate is borderline trying to polyfill mutation observers in a more performant way, right? But it needs to be synchronous so that we can essentially disconnect elements and tear down bindings immediately when upon the element being removed. I guess, I don't know. I'm just wondering. To me, I don't want Batobi to maintain two kind of versions of something similar.
Well, this doesn't mute, this is for fake DOMs. It doesn't mutate. It doesn't create a mutation observer for the real DOM. But that's what you're wanting.
But I assume it works by overriding append child and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wonder if we could do that. I wonder what we can move on real quick. I'm just wondering what the implications of that would be for CanJS instead of trying to, make it so everything in CanJS, in order to use CanJS correctly, you have to mutate the DOM through can-dom mutate, which obviously has some advantages. If we were just we're just gonna do what kind of Polymer does, and we're gonna take over the DOM, and not in a really crazy way like this is doing, but
that's my concern. Is this is in kind of a crazy way? Well,
yeah, it's not as crazy as Polymer's way, but yeah, I'm just thinking about that. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
It got me thinking because I don't like. We basically have the two things, and the nice thing, one final thought about it, is I like the idea of maybe CanJS could eventually move just to normal mutation observers, and then its queue system, we've talked about this for a long time, queue system could become asynchronous and essentially wait, not fire off the next queue until the mutation observers have had the chance to run.
Mm-hmm.
And if we did that, then we could actually kind of flip relatively easy from a synchronous to an asynchronous driver for tearing down view bindings and things like that.
Yeah, I like that idea better a little bit, but
yeah, it just would allow us to slowly migrate to something like that a little bit better than can-dom mutate would, and then we'd only have one. Anyways, I'm done.
All right. Yeah, this is more generic because it's really just the mutation observer polyfill, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, the only thing I wanted to show with this is the way the tests work. I really like it. What it does, it's got some test helpers I created. It allows you to build up a DOM, build up a root, and then you can mutate that root. And what it will do, it will set up a mutation observer with my fake DOM, for example, CanSimple DOM. But then we'll also set up a mutation observer with the real DOM. So basically, this function will get run against the fake DOM, and then this one will get run against the fake DOM, and then it'll get run against the real DOM. Basically, it allows you to compare the real mutation observer results to the ones that I'm producing. So that way I can make sure that my stuff is correct because the browser is hopefully correct. That's all. Just it's a cool way of knowing that my stuff is working correctly. The other thing that I worked on is called Done Mutation. I don't know if I love the name. I don't really have a better name right now. But what this does is it takes those mutation records, which are the things that mutation observers produce, and it encodes them. So when we're on the server, we're listening to using mutations, we need to encode those into instructions. And those instructions get sent over an H2 connection back to the browser, and then the browser will decode those and apply those patches. So that's what this library does. Is it has an encoder and a decoder and a patcher. The encoder takes those mutation records and turns it into like a bytecode, and then that can be written into the H2 stream. And then on the other side is we have a patcher which can take that bytecode and like apply those patches. So it's actually been a pretty fun thing to work on. I have a little demo here, and this kind of shows off what I really like about. Might not have a. What I like about just the way that this stuff is coming along is that I can actually like. A big problem with incremental rendering has been it's kind of difficult to debug, and that's just because you have to kind of have an entire app to really be able to debug it. Whereas now it's kind of broken up into separate pieces. I can more easily, like when I encounter a problem, reduce it into like a test case. But anyways, this is a demonstration of what this library does. This is just actually I think I have this running. Oh, no, can't download mutates. Okay, this is just this is an iframe running a CanJS app. It's actually using the MGS build and everything. Just a simple CanJS app running inside of an iframe. Basic stuff. This is a clone of this, so this is on the right side. This is just the app, but without the JavaScript running. And the purpose of this is to demonstrate that I can make changes to this side, and my encoder and patcher will patch that onto this side. Let me show you how that's set up. It's too many windows open. So yeah, like I said, there's two iframes. This one actually has an app running. This one does not. We listen to mutation observers again, and this time we're using like the real mutation observer. This is not the polyfill. We get those records and we run the encoder on it, and the encoder will encode those into, like I said, into a mutation instructions, and the patcher will patch that. So the patcher is set up on the clone document element. The encoder is listening to like the source document element. So that's all it does, is it listens to mutations, creates instructions, and then patches them on the other side. So I can now like make a change here, change the name to Matthew. You see it changed on this side. We have logging, so it's able to log what the mutations are. This is good if you're me, basically, and you're debugging this stuff. You get that over here. If I click on this, it's going to create some new nodes, because this is an if condition here. If you're the administrator, it writes this out. So you see you got more mutations. We removed one node and we inserted a text node, an H2, another text node, and their paragraph. And if we unclick it, we see we inserted a text node and we removed all those previous nodes. So yeah, this is pretty nice. I'm really happy with how this is kind of going.
One thing DoneJS still supports is worker thread rendering. Should this replace the way we were doing?
Yeah, so that's the other thing I love about this is it's kind of generic. It's a generic mutation. Well, maybe this is not where you're going with this, but it's a generic way to like patch mutations onto a DOM. So if you were like creating a virtual DOM library, you could very easily like encode your virtual DOM patches into something like this, and then this could just apply them. So that's one cool thing about this. But yeah, with worker thread rendering, this could definitely work that way as well. I mean, it's essentially doing the same kind of thing. Just before it was using that DOM patch library, whereas now it's this new stuff. The mutation observer, polyfill, and then this encoder and patcher. So yeah, that's all of this. That's kind of where I am on this.
Call it pipe too, or pipe instead of patch.
Pipe?
Well, I'm just thinking like streams. It's like called pipe. So what you did to like you got your stream of patches, and you should pipe that to the actual like DOM thing. You call it like patch.patch or something. I was just
I don't know. Yeah, naming's very hard here.
Yeah, is it a stream? Is it what kind of stream is it?
So this doesn't use streams. It doesn't need to. There's another thing which will be, again, maybe not a great name. I don't know if I have that here. Done reattach. Done reattach is the thing that's actually going to run for incremental rendering, and it will connect to a stream. It will get the bytes, and it will use the patcher to patch it.
I guess no. Just going back to that code that you showed how to get the patches. Like, what is? You just provided a function. It's just calling. What was?
Let me see that. Oh, so it creates a typed array.
What is bytes?
Bytes.
Never mind. I get it. I understand. There's no like you kind of have to create the mutation observer yourself, and mutations that just encodes. But there's no like kind of one catch-all like create the mutation and give me like a stream emitted for bytes. You're kind of like doing the wiring yourself. That's totally fine.
Yeah, there could be a higher level thing which does all of that maybe. I've started putting this into DoneSSR and stuff, and it's pretty minimal code. I don't know if I'll do something.
I think like readable streams would be so like you could literally create like a singleton readable stream that when connected to, when something else starts reading to it, internally it's gonna like figure out the right mutation patcher observer for like a window, whatever the document is, and then start just like being a stream, and then that way like you get all of the like it can slow itself down, the back propagation, it can be killed easily just by canceling the stream. I mean, maybe because I just walked through the new hires on like how done that I walked through my presentation on incremental rendering. I just like, oh yeah, streams are so awesome. I wish they were both in Node and in.
So that's a problem. I started off going to do streams here, but because Node has a different type of stream.
Yeah, you totally did the right call. It's just they need to be both places.
And actually, the cool thing about this is actually an iterator. So this is all using encoder is written as generator functions. So it actually doesn't start doing stuff, and it's like a pull-based kind of thing, you know. Until you start.
It's piling for browsers.
Well, this runs on the server primarily. The encoder does. Number one, it runs on the server in Node, and number two, incremental rendering only works in modern browsers, anyways. So yeah, there's no need to none of this stuff would ever run in a Node browser. So yeah, oh yeah, okay, I guess I can show this real quick. We have a little bit of time, and we start doing stuff. We actually get this. It's called. I probably should call this. It's really an iterator. You call mutations, but it actually hasn't done anything yet. Until you start doing like bytes.next, then you can get the value, and then you kind of iterate over that. Or you can do like this, and this is what DoneSSR will do. Is it will turn it into an 8-bit array, and that's everything. And this is what will be pushed into the stream. And then the patcher is able to take this and decode it and apply the patches and stuff. So
they got rid of that. I'm thinking for worker thread rendering, they got rid of that typed array that could like just kind of vanish and appear on the other side.
That was I think it's the shared array buffer.
Yeah, I think they got rid of that, right?
Yeah. There's still regular array buffer. There's still typed. I mean, you still have typed arrays.
You still send a typed array buffer as well. String.
Yeah. So the one that vanishes still exists. Actually, that's just like any of these basically will happen if you're in the worker and you sent this over. You no longer can use it on the worker side. The shared array buffer was one that was like shared between both. Like both sides could do stuff with it. And that's the one.
Oh, I thought the shared was like I didn't know you could still do stuff. I thought it was still like it doesn't have to there's no serialized step for
that's the shared array. Excuse me, that's just the like this, that will happen for this. This will not have to
Really?
be copied. Yeah. The shared array buffer was one that didn't vanish. It stayed on both sides.
You can't.
I don't know how that worked though.
A unit 8 array.
What's that?
You can't mutate that type of array.
What do you mean by I can't mutate it? You can mutate it.
Can you mutate the unit 8 array? Can you add more bytes to, or more?
No, you can't. You can't increase its size. You can mutate the stuff inside of it.
And I think worker thread messaging will still. I think it'll still copy the data.
No, it won't.
Really?
Yeah. It just becomes like null or something. Just you don't have access to that object anymore.
Interesting. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Are there any other topics? Or any topics? I guess we haven't really done topics. Anyone wanted to discuss? No?
Yeah. Did you have a topic, I thought?
I think I did. It was something. Okay, so all right, this is the topic. I was trying to remember. So with this incremental rendering, I started thinking about just our normal server-side rendering, and a real kind of problem with, not big problem, but an annoyance, I would say, with DoneJS is the way that Done auto render works is to like reattach from when you do server-side rendering is it will run your app kind of not attached to the page, and then use zones to wait for the app to complete, and then it will kind of swap everything out. That's how Done auto render works. But there's a lot of people use Done auto render, but aren't doing server-side rendering just because they like to be able to have one like main stash file for their entire page, and then you have to like use the no zones version, or you can use the zones version, but why would you? Just kind of a weird situation. Incremental rendering has this other way of doing it, which we really haven't perfected yet. But what it does is it shows the page inside of an iframe and lets the app run on the normal page. And when the app completes, it just removes the iframe and the app is there alive. So I was kind of thinking, I wonder if you could do the same thing for like just a normal SSR, where you just let the app run. We'll show our rendered page in an iframe, and when the normal app is done, we can remove that iframe. That's my idea. And then we just have like one way to do reattachment.
How do you get? But when you're rendering the page, like you send back the whole HTML response. How would you get that into an iframe? You can't embed HTML inside an iframe, as far as I know.
You can. Yes, you can.
You can? Oh, so I put like an starting iframe tag and then like divs and stuff inside of it, and then it will.
No. There's a source doc attribute, so you can provide the document as a string. However, I don't know what the browser support is like on that. It's probably not great. That's how incremental rendering does it. But that's kind of weird too, is that you're providing the HTML as a string attribute. But that's you can do that.
I mean, that's how you'd have to do it, though, right? Is you would like.
Well, the other thing is you could render it in the HTML and include a little JavaScript snippet, which actually puts it inside of an iframe and expands it. Yeah, but you wouldn't get the benefits of the streaming API parser. Like, if you had a really long page, you server-side rendered, you wouldn't be able to see like parts of it as it's coming in. It would, if you did all like kind of JavaScript is injecting. JavaScript doesn't run until the end of the script tag is present. Are you talking about incremental render? Well, it's related. I mean, it's a similar concept to why we had to do what we have to do for incremental rendering. Like, I don't think there's a way to like serve. I don't know. I mean, there might be. I'm just saying, like, I don't know of a way to get it so that you could see the page content kind of coming in at a big page's content coming in. Yeah, we don't do that anyways. You know, we just kind of send the entire thing. We do once it's ready, but still, if that was like a really slow internet connection and there's a huge amount of HTML, it would still come in streaming, and you would get like your head elements, and those would start downloading, and like you would still load up, and images would kind of like be kicked off early. To me, you'd have to find some way of
I think it would be good to find some way of making that work. If you could, I mean, it's too bad you can't put inside of iframe the HTML, because then that would solve this.
Right.
I don't know. I'll think about it. It's an interesting idea. There's probably like some weird trick.
Yeah. Well, the other cool thing about it is that, you know, right now you have to use done auto render. It's like a very specific thing you have to use with DoneJS for server-side rendering. Whereas this would be more generic. It'd be like, hey, render it however you want. We're just gonna like know how to like display the rendered page, and then when the interactive page is ready, get it away. That's kind of what I like about it.
Another less glamorous approach to solving this would just be to like have a no SSR option when creating a DoneJS app.
Yeah.
Which people have, you know, requested. Because I still think that, like, well, I think that the way to make CanJS apps work, then, if you don't have SSR, is like the new auto, just mount your element and just have that kick everything off. Which is very different, though, than like DoneJS is, because it includes the whole like HTML. So that's why, like, I don't know.
I think that's the future, though. I mean, I think that's how we're going to be teaching CanJS.
It's definitely how we teach what is it?
CanJS and Can components. That's kind of how you're already doing it, right?
Yes.
Auto mount.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then then we're going to start doing routing differently. So it's like it's going to be kind of weird that if you learn CanJS and then you go into DoneJS,
it's definitely something to think about. The
only problem is like stuff in the head. I just think
that's a big
It's not. There are a lot of different solutions.
Because you still, in the end,
you just have to pick one.
In the end, you still might want like your, you know, you still have like steel and you need to migrate it to production. We still have like there's still an HTML page that needs to get served. And the nice thing about DoneJS is that like you fully can represent that HTML page that's getting served. In CanJS, it's like there's this like little staticky thing. And maybe we could ask people to point to it. And maybe that's just what it is. It's like, hey, you just point. I mean, an ideal SSR solution. Well, we've talked about this. There's like the easy SSR solution, which is like you just point an HTML page, but the problem is it's going to have to reload the app every single render, and we want to, of course, avoid that. So there's like another version, which is like we know a main entry point for your app, so we don't have to reload every module. And that's like you need like kind of two entry points. Then you need your HTML entry point to know what your like whole HTML looks like, but then you need another entry point, which is like we know all of your modules, we've loaded them, and then this is the function that you run to like kick off the app every time, which would be like
DoneJS. We can infer that.
Huh?
So we can easily infer that for DoneJS app.
Maybe we infer. We just see like, hey, you give us your HTML. It's just got a single component in there, and we're just like one thing with a dash, and we're like, okay, we know that that's your. We're just gonna then every time we're gonna kick off the auto mounting of that component. Like every time so we can get that initial HTML, that's the starting HTML, and we're just gonna rerun that main component's auto mounted, like auto mounting essentially. I don't know. That's one way we could do it.
All right. Well, yeah, cool. DoneJS 4 maybe or something down the line. All right. Thanks everyone for coming in. Anything else? So what we got coming up for is there any events coming up for CanJS? Any trainings or meetups or anything that?
Well, there's for DoneJS Chicago, we are going to do. Forgot what we're doing. Give me 1 second. We are. Oh yeah, we're going to do a routing one. So we are going to do. I always draw these sketches. We're just going to do a simple like search and list search results, and then search details, like a item details page, and then make it work with routing. So we're going to do that, and then I'm probably going to do a open YouTube stream of the modal example that I gave at DoneJS Chicago a few weeks ago. Probably maybe next week, hopefully.
Okay, cool. Also on the development side, like I said, I've been focused on DoneJS 3. I'm going to take a break from it for a while because I'm going to do some CanJS upgrades for some people. Kevin, I believe he started on the routing guide. If not, he's going to be starting on that shortly. I think he released a new CanJS 2-point-something, or not 2-point-something, 5-point-something recently. And he's, I don't know if he is or someone else, but we should be tackling the I11 issue fairly soon as well. So that's kind of what we got coming up on the DoneJS development side. Well, I guess if there's nothing else, I guess we'll call this a day. Actually, a pretty good meeting for only the three of us.
Yeah, you did a great job hosting.
I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, really good. Next time again, please.
Pat myself in the back. All right. Well, thanks for everyone. I guess we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Sure. Have a great day.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Have a good one.